All right, this brings us to the third lecture in our talk of the cardiovascular system. This lecture will talk about the physiology of the heart, including the intrinsic conduction system, and we'll also talk a little bit about the cardiac cycle. So let's get to it. Now, although the heart chambers are bathed with blood almost continuously, the blood contained in the heart does not nourish the myocardium. The blood supply that oxygenates and nourishes the heart is provided by the right and left coronary arteries. Now, the coronary arteries branch from the base of the aorta and encircle the heart. The myocardium is drained by several cordial veins, which empty into an enlarged vessel on the posterior of the heart called the coronary sinus. Now, the coronary sinus then empties into the right atrium. So the blood has to nourish the heart as well as flow through the heart. Da-da-da-da. Moving on. Now, unlike skeletal muscles, which must be stimulated by nerve impulses before they will contract, cardiac muscle cells contract spontaneously and independently, even if all nervous connections are severed. Two systems act to regulate this heart activity. One involves nerves of the autonomic nervous system, which acts to decrease or increase heart rate. And the second system is the intrinsic conduction system that is built into the heart tissue and sets its basic rhythm. Now, most of the important parts of the intrinsic conduction system is called the sinoatrial node, also called the pacemaker, located in the right atrium. Other components include the atrioventricular node at the junction of the atria and the ventricles, the atrioventricular bundle, and the right and left bundle branches located in the interventricular septum. And finally, the Purkinje fibers, which spread within the muscle of the ventricle walls. Wow. So, the wave is initiated by the SA node, and it passes successively through the atrial myocardium to the AV node, the AV bundle, the right and left bundle branches, and the Purkinje fibers. Now, you need to remember this pathway. The SA node is a tiny cell mass with a mammoth job. It starts each heartbeat and sets the pace for the whole heart. Once the SA node starts the heartbeat, it sends out the signal ending with the Purkinje fibers, causing the ventricles to contract, sending the blood through the great arteries. Now, you can have a couple of different kinds of heart contractions. Tachycardia is a rapid heart rate, usually over 100 beats per minute. And bradycardia is a heart rate that is substantially slower than normal. That's about 60 beats per minute. Neither conduction is pathological, but prolonged tachycardia may progress to fibrillation, which is a rapid, uncoordinated shuddering of the heart muscle. Fibrillation makes the heart totally useless as a pump, and it's a major cause of death from heart attacks. Don't want that to happen. Now, in a healthy heart, the atria contract simultaneously. Then, as they start to relax, contraction of the ventricles begins. Systole and diastole mean heart contraction and relaxation. Now, this figure shows the cardiac cycle. So, mid to late diastole begins with the heart in complete relaxation. At this point, the pressure in the heart is low and the blood is flowing passively into and through the atria into the ventricles. Now, the semilunar valves are closed and the AV valves are open. Then the atria contract and force the blood remaining in their chambers into the ventricles. Shortly after, ventricular contraction, or systole, begins and the pressure within the ventricle increases rapidly, closing the AV valves. Now, when the pressure in the ventricle is higher than the pressure in the large arteries leaving the heart, the semilunar valves are forced open and the blood rushes through them out of the ventricles. During this stage, the atria are relaxed and their chambers are again filling with blood. At the end of systole, The ventricles relax, the semilunar valves snap shut, and for a moment the ventricles are completely closed chambers. During each diastole, the pressure drops. When it drops below the pressure in the atria, the AV valves are forced open, and the ventricles again begin to refill rapidly with blood, completing the cycle. This is called the cardiac cycle. So what do we need to know? Well, what is the coronary circulation? How does the heart itself get blood? What is the pathway of the intrinsic conduction system? That's very important. What is tachycardia and bradycardia? And what is the pathway of the cardiac cycle? Get all that, and we are ready to go on to lecture number 4. See ya.